Hi everyone, Carter Krishnaiyer here from Beyond the 90. I'm going to give a short update on the USL labor situation as we head into week 2 of the USL Championship season and we head into a week of US Open Cup play. And then we're going to talk specifically about licensing and NIL and that good stuff, which is the key issue in this particular negotiation. There are several issues that the players and the owners have some separation on, but licensing is the big piece. And it is the biggest talking point in American sports over the course of the last few years. Everybody knows about NIL in college sports. So I want to mention that I think the possibility of a work stoppage has probably been punted into next week. The indications I have is this weekend will go on as anticipated. There will be no strike called today on Friday, and there will be no strike called on Monday because of Open Cup. Now, what happens after Open Cup remains to be seen. After the first round of Open Cup. Open Cup is maybe a bit of a complication here because the players do not want to be necessarily responsible for clubs being kicked out of Open Cup. Now, if you strike in advance, a couple weeks in advance of a round of matches, that changes things a little bit because there can be adjustments made to the calendar. But you can't strike immediately before an Open Cup match day. And secondly, let's face it, we've seen it the last few seasons, when there's been fuller MLS participation, USL Championship clubs don't necessarily do that well in this tournament. So they might be out of it at some point in the near future, all but a handful. Last season, only Pittsburgh got past an MLS team, right? I think every other USL team lost to MLS teams. Now, there were some good performances in there, some unfortunate losses. Rhode Island against New England sticks out to me. There were also some really embarrassing performances, like Tampa Bay's 5-0 loss to Orlando, which quite honestly could have been 8-0, 10-0. Name your score for Orlando City. Sad to see Oscar Pereira sacked, by the way. I did not, or mutual consent left Orlando City. Did great things at that club. So anyway, let's talk about, so we're looking at the earliest for a strike now as next Thursday, a week in the future because of Open Cup. So let's talk about the big issue, which is licensing. Now, I get the sense that on the actual collective bargaining agreement components, there is a very good chance that we are only, well, I don't want to say only because we're into the season and the CBA expired December 31st. We're only 6 weeks away, maybe, if the parties continue kind of inching toward one another where we have synergy. We have a lock in terms of what those clubs can do and what the clubs, the players, and the owners all agree, and USLHQ all agree on in terms of wage compensation, healthcare, athletic trainers, contract length, all of that stuff, training facilities, housing arrangements, travel arrangements. I'm not saying they're not there yet, and it's going to take several more weeks of negotiations and of sessions. Sessions without federal mediators. Federal mediators have been asked to leave, as I reported yesterday. But this is incredibly important. There has been no positive movement on licensing. And you can agree on all the CBA components. When it comes to a GLA, a group licensing agreement, there's no daylight right now. Well, I shouldn't say there's no daylight. There's plenty of daylight between the parties. There's no daylight if you're in the tunnel trying to get it dealt with. So why is NIL so important? Why is licensing so important? Well, look, the union does a lot of stuff, and I have to say a lot of this is about funding a union. If you look at the NFLPA, the MLSPA, the MLSPU, etc., they do a lot for their players. And they're able to do a lot for their players because of the licensing, because they license trading cards, which, by the way, I've heard their trading card arrangements potentially on the table for USL, but they haven't taken. Things like Panini stickers. I don't want to get too specific, but there are things that they have that they haven't been able to get over the line with, but they might be able to at some point, and that shows the value of the players. Obviously, we've talked about the eFootball game in the past. That's millions of dollars potentially that could have gone to the clubs and to the players. So what does the players' union do? Well, first of all, USL has not been terribly great at compliance through the years. A lot of that has fallen on the players' union and has fallen on Connor Tobin, the executive director. Things like mental health is provided for by the union. Mental health services. Y-Scout. I talked to a player at a very successful club about a senior player about Y-Scout and how important Y-Scout, which the union provides for each of the players, has been in him becoming more professional. You know, stuff that coaches aren't telling him, or stuff that he can work on his own, and talking to his teammates, and it creates leaders in the dressing room, in the locker room. This is the value add. And you talk about the fact that the union at some point could be able to provide health benefits to the players if there were enough money coming in to the union. They could get more employees. There's a lot of stuff they do with compliance. And you talk to people at clubs, they kind of agree with you on this. The union has cleaned up a lot of messes for this league and for clubs. The union cleaned up the mess in Knoxville. I know of a situation in the Super League currently which the union is involved in. And thank goodness there's a players' union given that situation. I'm not going to elaborate on it much more. Think about the Tormenta situation. You have to have a players' union for that. You have to have a funded players' union for that. So what exactly is why exactly do the players think they have this value in terms of licensing? Well, look, you even look at the lineup cards, or the lineup, they're not cards anymore, they're graphics, right, that they put on social media, but they used to hand us these things at games. There's a player image on it with a sponsor. You can't tell me that doesn't have value. There are clubs that have run in previous years billboards with player images with prominent sponsors, prominent local sponsors, even in some cases, nationally known brands. I am telling you that corporations and sponsors love to, what's the term I'm looking for? Associate themselves with athletes. They love to be shown to be associated with high-level professional athletes. And if they have a sponsor of a sponsorship of a USL Championship club, you better believe they want the images of those players, those young athletes, athletic-looking types on company paraphernalia, and on paraphernalia talking about the sponsorship. This is a form of, this is kind of like, I'm looking for the term, sports washing. Like what the Qataris and Emiratis do by buying football clubs in Western Europe. It's the same thing. Corporations want to be associated with great, even if they're not the most benevolent corporations. American capitalists want to be associated with great athletes. And so, if there's a picture of a let's say you're up in Lexington, and you want a billboard, and you want a billboard of, and I shouldn't pick on Lexington because they're actually one of the better clubs in USL. I mean, there are a lot of clubs not doing it the right way. They are maybe the standout club. But let's just keep going with Lexington as the analogy. Let's say the University of Kentucky Health System, which is a sponsor. Obviously, they're in Lexington. That's where UK is. They want a billboard with Marcus Epps and Aaron Malloy. They want to show, not only do they treat the great Kentucky basketball program, one of the greatest college basketball programs in the history, the Blue Blood, UK, even though they've been usurped or passed by the University of Florida recently in the SEC, my alma mater. But the great basketball, they want these professional athletes. So they got Malloy, they got Epps, right? Think about it. They put Philip Goodrum. You know, it makes sense. You want that. So that's for the I'm saying for the UK health system. But think of it, Sprite, who we know, Sprite, Coca-Cola, sponsor in Birmingham. They want they want Ronaldo Damus on an advertisement, on a billboard. So there is value in these players. It doesn't matter, as some people have argued to me, no one knows who the players are in USL. There are only a handful of guys people know. Although Mark Anthony Kaye signed in Sacramento, a lot of people know who he is. And obviously, there are one or two other guys of note that have signed in this league. And they might really know who Duke Lacroix, who's actually the president of the union, is after the World Cup, because he's going to be a 90-minute player for Haiti in this summer's World Cup. But that's why there is value in this. And so as I look at my notes, I'm reminded that part of the reason the union needs the licensing money to help fund union operations is, think about how little USL championship players make. And then think about USL League One players who make even less. USL Super League players who make, on average, less than the championship players, but their floors are higher. Are you going to raise dues on them to fund the mental health, to fund the Y Scout, to fund the potential healthcare piece, to fund the compliance, to fund the fact that their executive director currently, Connor Tobin, is like, has to travel like mad? No. So you're not going to do that to the players. And I think a lot of clubs see this. They need some more money from the licensing piece. And then you have the ability to license for trading cards. I buy USL cards. Look, I have an old collection of MISL cards. I have an old collection of Upper Deck MLS cards. For those of you who follow me, you've seen all my Panini sticker albums that I put at various times on. I mean, going back to 1987, I've been collecting Panini stickers. I was a little kid then, but we went to the UK that summer. Got a sticker album. I started collecting. So there's value in that. There's absolute value in that. And you think about the sort of players that have come out of USL. I hear so many MLS people talk about Diego Luna. Oh, he's one of the best American players. He's got to be starting in the World Cup. Who developed him? He got developed in USL. Got developed by El Paso. Yeah, one time Ricardo Pepi was in USL. I mean, admittedly with reserve teams, right? Tyler Adams, Alphonso Davies, those guys. But there are other players of value that have have elevated and become household names. So there is value in the players in this league. And I think that if you talk about licensing in general, it is becoming a huge deal. Athletes know their rights. They know their value now. And when I talk to individual players in USL, yeah, they're concerned about the health. Oh, of course they're concerned about the healthcare. I shouldn't have picked the wrong thing. Yeah, they're concerned about the wages. They're concerned about the living arrangements. They're concerned about some other things. But boy, do they think they're worth maybe more than you think they're worth, or I think they're worth. But boy, do they think that they're doing something as a professional athlete. And if you're going to give them $40 a year, saying, hey, your image is only worth $40 a year, because that's kind of what it works out to, the owner's offer. Yeah, maybe a little more than that, actually. Maybe it's more like $100 a year, but whatever. That's what you're going to see their image and likeness is worth. They're going to reject that, and probably rightly so. So this is where we're at this moment. And I think if you come to some sort of accord on group licensing, what's the latest? The players want 650, 600, 650. They come down from the 1 point whatever. I can't even remember what it was. It was 1 point something. Down to 600, 650. The owners are at 125. They got to meet. The owners have got to concede, okay, 125, why don't we triple that to 375? Maybe throw in a little more to get to 400, and then, I'm saying the owners, sorry, management, HQ. HQ has got to, see, I'm even falling into the reflexive thing about this being a typical dispute. HQ has got to say, okay, let's do 375. Maybe then the players come back and say 450, and then we can meet. And we can get this done. And I suspect if the licensing or the NIL or NIL, as everybody likes to call it, and I know now it's getting politicized, the president is trying to get involved on the college level on NIL, which is, there's no CBA in college sports, which is a problem, but I also don't like, okay, this is me ideologically. I don't like, politicians getting involved and regulating the free market. I'm going to tell you something. College players have had value forever, and I'm not going to begrudge them for making money. Okay? It's about freaking time. Now, maybe it's out of control, but the market is dictating what these guys are worth. So there should be a CBA in college sports, but the president shouldn't be involved in creating a CBA, or governors of states should not be involved in that. That's for college. Here in USL Championship, if we could get to some sort of agreement on licensing, the rest will fall in place. I'm really confident. And I think it'll be very important for USL, whose credibility, even with investors, relies on having a strong union presence. I think it'll be very important for USL as a league, if they want to continue to get investors and they want to build this D1 thing out in pro rel properly, to have a strong union that's well funded, that's happy with the licensing agreement, and then as partners, USL HQ, the owners in the USL Championship, and the players can move forward. So licensing, it's the key.